On November 2nd, 2000, the first crew of astronauts arrived at the International Space Station. Almost 25 years have passed, and the ISS still remains one of the most outstanding projects created by humanity. During all this time, 280 astronauts from 23 countries have visited the station. This place has become a floating laboratory for space research where people from all over the world come together to explore our universe. The station remains a source of inspiration for writers and movie directors. This is not only one of the most important parts of the scientific field of humankind, but also an important attribute of pop culture. The station makes one circle around Earth every 90 minutes, and very soon, one of its next circles will become the last one. NASA is going to destroy the ISS. Space and science fiction fans may feel sad at this moment, but there are good reasons for such a difficult decision. The ISS, like any physical object, is not eternal, especially in the conditions of outer space. Yes, there's no oxygen, atmosphere, oxidation of materials, and air pressure, but the ISS is moving at an altitude of about 260 miles above the Earth's surface at a speed of 17,900 miles per hour, which is almost 20 times faster than the speed of sound. Also, the space around the planet is filled with debris consisting of broken satellites. And don't forget about stardust and tiny pieces of meteorites. What if something crashes into the station and blows it to pieces? Yeah, NASA is tracking the largest pieces of debris, but there are more and more of them every year. Under such conditions, the station can't serve us forever. The parts are wearing out, and the station fasteners are becoming weaker and require frequent repairs. The station was supposed to only last 15 years, but it will eventually last twice as long. In 2030, astronauts will leave the ISS, and then it will be destroyed. But how can this be done, given the size of this object? It weighs 430 tons and is the size of a football field. It is the largest object after the Moon that flies around our planet. People made 42 launches into space to construct this gigantic structure. Given its size and close location to Earth, destroying the station is a big risk. Just imagine it disintegrating into hundreds and thousands of fragments and falling to the surface of our planet. Yes, some of these chunks will burn up in the atmosphere. Others will fall into the water. But some large parts can fall on cities. It will be a devastating meteor shower. This option is too dangerous, but this is exactly what NASA is about to do. The disposal of the station will probably be a more complex operation than its creation. Of course, scientists have considered other options besides the destruction. For example, we could return all the astronauts to Earth and then send the station to a higher orbit so that it would fly there forever. However, such an operation would be too expensive. In addition, changing the orbit might not save the station from collapsing. We definitely don't need a huge piece of metal that could fall apart at any moment over our heads. That's why destroying the station is the only option. To destroy the station, scientists plan to send it to a lower Earth orbit, then carry it through the atmosphere, where some parts of the station will burn, and after that, submerge the station in a remote part of the ocean, where ships don't sail and fish don't swim. By the way, this place is called Point Nemo, and it's located in the South Pacific Ocean. This is the farthest point from land. For many years, people have been dumping space debris and failed satellites there. It's considered one of the most lifeless and loneliest places on Earth. NASA plans to drop the ISS there, but this requires very precise calculations and control. The operation can't be fulfilled without a special space tug, and this unique machine will be invented by Elon Musk's SpaceX company. Musk signed an $845 million contract with NASA. According to it, the station should be safely destroyed by 2031. And that's how this cinematic operation is going to happen. The device that will lower the ISS to Earth will be built according to the design of the SpaceX Dragon ship capsule. Scientists plan to calculate the details of the station's flight trajectory, all angles of incidence, and the speed of movement. No mistake can be made, as any miscalculation will lead to disaster. Our planet is a giant object with a powerful gravitational force that attracts other objects to itself. The ISS uses thrusters to resist this attraction and stay at the same height. So, first of all, the station will need to reduce its resistance. If necessary, it can use the engines to adjust the route. From an altitude of 260 miles, the station will descend into an orbit of 205 miles above Earth. After that, SpaceX will launch its space tug. All this will happen about a year before the scheduled date of destruction. During this time, the astronauts will fold up scientific equipment, say goodbye to the station, and return home. This sad moment will be recorded on camera and posted on the internet. After that, the whole planet will watch the dramatic finale of the ISS. The space tug will dock with the station and transport it to the lowest point of the orbit, approximately 90 miles above the surface. There, the station will experience huge air resistance. It will become increasingly difficult to control the fall. The tug must be equipped with powerful rocket engines to correct the flight. Scientists will control the shuttle, calculating the trajectory of the fall. Then, SpaceX's device will begin to push the station down. The giant space object will pass through the thickest and most dangerous layers of the atmosphere. It will burn down the station, which will be falling apart by that time. This will be a mesmerizing fire show. Some parts will burn up in the air, others will pass through the barrier. At high speed, incandescent parts will collide with the surface of the Pacific Ocean. Millions of people will be watching the last flight of the space legend on the screens of their gadgets and TVs. The water will be getting closer, and boom! Pieces of those stations will crash into the water with a deafening noise. Many smaller fragments will fall nearby. The entire station will cool down quickly and sink to the ocean floor. Mission completed. But the history of the station won't be over. Point Nemo is 2,700 miles away from the nearest land in any direction. But the best way to get to it is from Easter Island, Chile. What if rich people from all over the world flew to Chile to then travel to Point Nemo? Just imagine, covering thousands of miles just to get to the ISS crash site. People will descend in bathyscaphs to the ocean floor and take out the wreckage of the station. Someone might start selling them. Someone will keep them at home as part of a collection. Perhaps NASA will retrieve some modules of the station to put them in a museum. But what will happen once scientists finally get rid of the ISS? The space laboratory is used for research in outer space. After its destruction, research will continue, but on a grander scale. Humanity has to explore Mars, remember? For such an important mission, it's necessary to prepare astronauts in conditions close to those on the Red Planet. The Moon is the perfect place. NASA is conducting the Artemis mission. We'll explore the lunar surface, and we will go on a long journey to Mars from there. At the end of 2022, NASA launched a probe that flew beyond the Moon. The next flight will be launched with people on board. The third flight will be the first human outing on the Moon since 1972. Gradually, step by step, the agency plans to land several astronauts and space station modules on the surface of the Moon. They will build large research bases where they will prepare for the first ever human flight to Mars. By the way, would you agree to go on a dangerous journey to the Red Planet? Write your answers in the comments.
A huge asteroid, several hundred feet across, is dashing towards Earth through the black nothingness of the cosmos. Ooh. Brace for the terrible news. There's a 72% chance it might hit Earth in 14 years, with potential impact zones being North America, Southern Europe, and North Africa, some of the most densely populated areas on the planet. Astronomers have been keeping a close eye on the space invader for a few months, but now it's moved too close to the Sun, and tracking it is impossible for the next 7 months. Of course, there's a 28% chance that it will miss our planet altogether. But what if it doesn't? Global devastation and destruction, that's what. Thousands of lives lost, billions and billions of dollars in damage, entire species wiped off the face of the Earth, ruined cities and towns, destroyed fields and forests. We're left wondering whether it's the future awaiting for us. Well, now you can breathe easy. That's just a hypothetical scenario created by NASA to prepare for a situation like this. The space agency has been thinking about this kind of disaster for years. Even cooler, they run what-if asteroid exercises every 2 years to get scientists, state agencies, and international experts on the same page. The last one occurred in April. Over 100 people took part in that event. During such asteroid drills, experts pretend that a giant space rock is heading our way. Then they work through all the tricky questions they can come up with, like how big is it? Where might it hit? What should we do? It's like a massive brainstorming session to make sure that if it ever happens, we won't have to start from scratch. To make these scenarios feel as real as possible, NASA's Center for Near-Earth Object Studies gets involved. These are folks who track real asteroids and calculate their orbits. So they simulate months of asteroid observations, complete with uncertainties about its size, trajectory, and potential impact zones. It's the kind of uncertainty that makes decision-making way harder, just like it would be in real life. Now, if an astronaut really was aiming at Earth, it wouldn't be just one country's problem. It would be everyone's. That's why this exercise brings in international experts. In April, it happened for the first time. They worked alongside U.S. agencies like NASA's Planetary Defense Coordination Office and FEMA to understand how the world might respond to such a crisis, since an asteroid impact would have dire consequences globally. Now, the big question is, can we actually stop an asteroid from hitting Earth? Here, there are two main options experts consider. First, we could send a spacecraft to gather more info. If we knew more about the asteroid's size, mass, and orbit, we'd be able to make better decisions about what to do next. The second option is to try to deflect it. Basically, it means bumping the asteroid off its course so that it misses Earth. This might sound impossible, but NASA's DART mission has already proven that we can do it. 2 years ago, they crashed a spacecraft into a small asteroid called Dimorphos and successfully changed its orbit. It was a huge victory for planetary defense. But missions like that take tons of time to plan, prepare, and carry out. That's why spotting dangerous asteroids as early as possible is so important. Currently, NASA is working on a new telescope called NEO-Surveyor, which is set to launch in 2027. Unlike good old telescopes, NEO-Surveyor is designed to detect even the trickiest asteroids, including ones orbiting close to the Sun. It'll give us a better chance to act early and potentially stop an asteroid before it becomes a threat. If you still think that an asteroid impact is something out of science fiction and the threat isn't real, how about this? Early on Sunday, January 21st, a small asteroid about 3 feet wide entered Earth's atmosphere and luckily burned up over Germany. NASA's Scout Impact System spotted it 95 minutes before it hit and predicted exactly when and where it would arrive. At 1:32 a.m. local time, the asteroid turned into a blazing bright fireball, visible as far away as the Czech Republic. Some small meteorites might have landed near the impact site, about 37 miles west of Berlin. This is just the 8th time ever that an asteroid has been detected before it hit Earth. It's a splendid example of how tools like Scout are helping us track asteroids and prepare for anything bigger that might come our way. Here's another example. A small asteroid turned the skies over northeastern Siberia into a breathtaking light show on December the 4th, burning up harmlessly in Earth's atmosphere. The space rock, about 28 inches across, was spotted just hours before it hit. Thanks to observations from astronomers around the world, a special alert system managed to predict the impact to plus or minus 10 seconds. The asteroid entered Earth's atmosphere at 1:15 a.m. local time. The authorities were put on alert, but there was no damage reports. NASA's Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Last Alert System, or ATLAS, spotted the rock 12 hours before it entered the atmosphere. This makes it the 4th imminent impactor, which is an asteroid discovered within hours of its expected impact, detected this year, and the 11th overall. Now, China also has big plans for planetary defense. They're working on their first mission to hit an asteroid, and it's got a double purpose. One spacecraft will crash into the asteroid, and the other will hang back to study the whole thing for up to a year. In other words, it's not just about protecting Earth. It's also a way to learn more about the solar system. The target is an asteroid called 2015 XF261, which is a mouthful, and also about 100 feet wide. It flew by Earth recently on July 9, passing us at 31 million miles. True, it's pretty far away, but the space traveler was zooming by at a speed of 26,000 miles per hour, 30 times faster than the speed of sound. China is going to send a space probe to study the asteroid. They're hoping to learn more about its structure and composition, which could help us with future planetary defense missions. Then they plan to hit the asteroid with another spacecraft to test the impact, and the first space probe will stay there to observe the remains for up to a year. Timing is critical for this mission, and the asteroid offers some good opportunities in the next few years. Thus, in March and May of 2027, the asteroid will pass within 20 million miles of Earth. In April 2028, it'll get even closer. By that I mean 13 million miles away. A year later, in April 2029, the asteroid will end up just 4.2 million miles away, making it the best shot for a mission. Another decent chance will be April 2030. That's when the asteroid will pass our planet at 4.4 million miles. To give you some context, NASA's DART mission once targeted an asteroid 7 million miles away, and the trip took 10 months. So China's planners have to pick the right moment, depending on how long their spacecraft will need to get there. The mission is expected to start around 2027. At the same time, this won't be China's first attempt to target an asteroid. Back in 2023, they were planning a planetary defense test with a different asteroid, which is also about 100 feet wide. It's not clear why they switched to the current one, probably because the timing works better. Most asteroids are basically time capsules from 4.6 billion years ago, leftovers from when the solar system was just forming. Studying them could tell us a lot about how planets, including Earth, came to be. So, China's taking on something that combines planetary defense and pure space science. They're definitely making big moves in the space exploration game.
NASA has recently revealed some eerie cosmic sounds that go against the popular misconception about the muteness of space. This discovery proves once again that the universe is far from silent. The revelation came from the Perseus galaxy cluster, located 250 million light-years away from Earth. There, NASA uncovered an unworldly howling coming from the supermassive black hole at its center. This discovery isn't super fresh. It was made in 2003. It marked the first time scientists detected an acoustic phenomenon from such a distant source. Sadly, the sound was not something you would be able to hear. Its frequency was just too low for the human ear to register. The lowest pitch the human ear can perceive is 20 Hz, 20 cycles per second. But the sound emitted by the black hole is a B-flat, 57 octaves below middle C, with a frequency of 10 million years. But NASA brought it to the realm of human hearing in 2022, turning that invisible sound into something you could actually experience. It was a breakthrough of cosmic proportions when NASA revealed that sound waves could travel through space, specifically through the medium of the Perseus galaxy cluster. This medium is a hot, dense gas, something far more substantial than the empty vacuum between galaxies. That's how sound waves manage to travel there. Those sound waves produced by the supermassive black hole at the center of Perseus resonate through the hot gas as ripples. It's like how sound travels through water here on Earth. The thing is, space is indeed a vacuum, which means that sound cannot travel through it, in the traditional sense. But the gas surrounding the black hole in Perseus provided the perfect environment for sound to travel. The black hole's powerful jets create ripples, sending vibrations through the gas. And NASA scientists have identified those vibrations as a type of cosmic sound. Previously, it was totally invisible and unhearable. But now, for the first time, astronomers have helped it to take a form humans can hear. To give us a sense of how deep this sound is, NASA raised its pitch by 57 octaves so that it could finally be audible to the human ear. The result is a haunting, bass-heavy hum. it feels as though it is resonating from the very core of space itself. What NASA did is called sonification. This process involves mapping the characteristics of the data to audible sound. As a result, we can experience something that is otherwise beyond our perception. See those brighter areas of the cluster? They produce louder and higher-pitched tones. The sonification of the Perseus black hole isn't just a scientific discovery. It has allowed us to see, or should I say, hear, the universe in a completely different way. NASA has used this technique on several different space objects, including stars, nebulae, and galaxies, giving us a glimpse into the various ways space can sound. One of the coolest NASA's sonifications is Cassiopeia A. It's the remains of a star spotted as a supernova more than 300 years ago. Located around 10,000 light-years away from Earth, this shattered remnant of a once massive star has a neutron star at its core. And it's the youngest neutron star in our galaxy that we know about. To perform the sonification of Cassiopeia A, NASA took the data captured by the Chandra X-ray Observatory and translated it into sound. Starting at the center, a triangle-shaped tone marks the location of the neutron star. Then, the sound spreads outward, which represents the expanding debris field. That's when the pitch rises and the tones become brighter. The sound grows louder and seems to mirror the outbursts of the supernova and the formation of new elements. The Tarantula Nebula, located in the Large Magellanic Cloud, is a hotbed of star formation and one of the most active regions in the universe. Astronomers have been studying this nebula for a long time to learn more about how stars are born and evolve. So, no wonder that NASA scientists have been doing their best to translate the data from the nebula into sound. They've been mapping brightness and pitch to various features in the nebula. So, airy, synthesizer-like tones represent the chaotic and hot gases surrounding the most massive stars. And the cooler gases that are forming new stars have soft, low notes. Piano-like tones correspond to the brightest stars. And the central cluster of stars sounds like a rain stick. Interestingly, NASA's investigation into the sounds of space doesn't just involve cosmic phenomena. It's also based on the experiences of astronauts, and some of them are truly eerie. After all, space exploration is always filled with unexpected surprises, and sometimes those surprises come in the form of strange noises aboard spacecraft. One such incident occurred aboard the International Space Station, when astronaut Butch Wilmore reported hearing a strange noise coming from Boeing's Starliner spacecraft. By that time, this spaceship had been docked at the station for almost 3 months. The Starliner had just completed an 8-day mission that went awry. The technical issues have been plaguing the spacecraft ever since. Wilmore described the sound as a pulsing noise, similar to a sonar ping. It was coming through the spacecraft's speaker system. This strange noise made Wilmore contact NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston. Of course, Mission Control immediately began investigating. They were able to listen to the audio inside the Starliner. Wilmore even held his microphone up to the speaker so that NASA could hear it more clearly. The people in charge of the investigation finally identified the source of the noise. They announced there was an audio configuration issue with the ISS's complex communication system. The thing is, this system connects numerous spacecraft and modules, and such configurations can sometimes lead to strange noises. NASA reassured everyone that such an issue wasn't really unusual. At the same time, they encourage astronauts to report any unexpected sounds they come across. At the same time, this incident was just another proof of how tricky it is to maintain advanced spacecraft systems in orbit. The Starliner had already faced serious delays and setbacks. And every new issue added extra pressure. Everyone was worried about the spacecraft's safe return to Earth. In any case, it's not the only incident involving eerie space sounds. In 1969, during the Apollo 10 mission, astronauts heard something truly bizarre while orbiting the Moon. Now, Apollo 10 was a dry run for the historic Apollo 11 moon landing. This mission involved astronauts Thomas Stafford, John Young, and Eugene Cernan. They were testing the systems of the lunar module. Everything was going smoothly, and then they started passing behind the Moon. In that region, radio signals from Earth couldn't reach them. At that point, they all started hearing a strange, high-pitched whistling sound. It was coming through their headsets. The origin of this noise baffled the astronauts since it wasn't supposed to exist in the near vacuum of space. At first, they simply joked that it sounded like outer space music. But in reality, the situation was quite unnerving. The astronauts were on the dark side of the Moon, far away from Earth and any help. And now there was also that eerie, mysterious sound they couldn't explain. At the same time, NASA was super worried about astronauts' health and mental condition. So the crew didn't immediately report the noise to Mission Control. But after they returned to Earth, NASA engineers thoroughly investigated the phenomenon. They came to the conclusion that the sound had most likely come from the spacecraft's communications system. The reason could be the unusual circumstances of the mission. After all, the spacecraft was kinda cut off Earth. The Moon was between it and our planet. Still, even after this extensive analysis, the origin and nature of the whistle is still a great mystery for many people. Anyway, all these new discoveries and old cosmic puzzles prove that the universe is far from silent. It hums, roars, whispers, and reveals the mysteries of the cosmos one note at a time. In the future, as our technological abilities continue to evolve, NASA's work with sonification and its study of strange astronaut experiences will likely lead to even more awesome discoveries. And if we listen more closely, we may find that the universe is much more talkative than we think.
You know what? 8 out of 10 people worldwide can't see the Milky Way anymore. And in just 100 years, it might turn into a forgotten tale from the past. It's not that the galaxy is disappearing, but that the cosmos is fading from view. Back in our grandparents' day, they could look up and see this vibrant tapestry of stars. But nowadays, we're lucky if we can even count them on one hand. This has nothing to do with nature. It's all because of the creeping threat of something called light pollution. Next time you walk around a big city after dark, take a moment to notice the large number of street lights, neon billboards, and office buildings shining all night long. Those endless city lights create an artificial brightness that competes with the natural glow of the stars. This is light pollution, and it's getting worse. Every year, Earth gets 10% brighter. That means if someone is born today in an area where you can typically see around 250 stars, when they reach 18, they'll only be able to see about 100 of them. Unfortunately, that's already a problem in big cities, where looking up at the stars is becoming something that you can only do in planetariums. It's gotten to a point where, during an earthquake that knocked out the power in Los Angeles in the 90s, many residents called emergency centers to report a massive silvery cloud in the night sky. But what they were actually seeing, perhaps for the first time, was the Milky Way. When you look at Earth from space, you can see vast areas of North America, Europe, the Middle East, and Asia all lit up. Singapore, Qatar, and Kuwait are some of the most light-polluted countries. On the flip side, remote places like Siberia, the Sahara, and the Amazon rainforest are in total darkness. Light pollution shows up in many forms. First, there is glare, like when you're driving and those bright lights literally make your eyes hurt, leaving you very uncomfortable. Then there is clutter, like Times Square with its crazy mishmash of different bright lights all over the place. Light trespass is when light sneaks into places it shouldn't, like a streetlight shining right into your bedroom. And finally, there is over-illumination, which is just using way too much artificial light for no good reason, like keeping all the office lights on throughout the night when no one is even there. All these forms of light pollution aren't just stealing the beauty of the night sky, they're also interfering with astronomical studies. When we rely too heavily on artificial lights, it messes up the work of Earth-based telescopes. And when that equipment can't do their job properly, we end up needing even more expensive space telescopes like Hubble and James Webb. And let's face it, that costs us billions. Turning night into day actually affects all of us, not just astronomers. Nighttime light messes with our sleep schedule and our body's internal clock. This clock keeps things like brain activity, hormone levels, and cell functions on track. So when it's disrupted, it can lead to serious issues like depression, insomnia, heart problems, or worse. One key process that gets messed up is the production of melatonin, a hormone that kicks in when it's dark. Too much light at night lowers melatonin levels, leading to stress, anxiety, headaches, and sleep deprivation. Blue light is the main villain here. You might think that turning on night mode and getting that orange glow in your phone screen is enough, but it's not. Blue light is also present in LED bulbs, the kind we use at home and in city lighting, because they're cheap and energy efficient. My point is that blue light is basically everywhere, and it's a real challenge to avoid it completely. This is also a big part of why we're not entirely sure how bad light pollution is nowadays. I mean, some statistics suggest that this issue increased by 49% over 25 years, up to 2017. But the real figure may be even higher. The thing is, blue light has shorter wavelengths, and the satellites we depend on today struggle to detect it accurately, meaning they don't quite capture the full extent of the light pollution caused by LED lights. Animals are lost and confused too. Their sleep patterns are also affected. A study from Germany revealed that blackbirds in urban areas are getting active much earlier than those in natural habitats. They wake up and start singing up to 5 hours sooner than their country cousins. Migration behaviors are messed up, especially for birds like sparrows and thrushes who travel at night. You see, they rely on the moon and stars as their internal GPS. So you can imagine how disoriented they get when they spot something like Las Vegas's massive sphere, lit up by 1.2 million LED bulbs. The intense brightness hides stars and disrupts their navigation across thousands of miles and continents. And it's not just that. Artificial lighting is unfortunately causing more birds to crash into skyscrapers and high-rise buildings. Insects, like mosquitoes, are also affected by light pollution. Yep, they're kind of gross, so it might not bug you if they're attracted to artificial lights and meet their fate. But remember, they're a crucial food source for many animals, like bats or frogs, so disrupting their populations could throw off entire food chains. Nighttime lights are causing problems underwater as well. Marine creatures near brightly lit panels off the Welsh coast are changing their behaviors, and fewer sea squirts and sea bristles are hanging out near those lights. Another example involves sea turtles. They typically lay their eggs on beaches and often return to the same spots for years. But when those beaches are too bright at night, female turtles might become confused and decide not to lay their eggs there. Now, do we really need all this light? It's hard to say. Some people might feel safer at night, while others think the opposite. You see, it's usually the glare that messes up our sight. Here's an example. If there's a super bright lamp blocking our view, say at a gate, we can't see anything but the light. But check this out. If we partially cover the light with our hands, suddenly we can spot an intruder. Wow. What I mean is that more lamps don't always mean more safety. It's all about using them the right way, and doing things like dimming lights can actually enhance security. Plus, it could save you some cash. Speaking of which, light waste has a pretty big impact on the economy. Take a Cobra Head streetlight, for instance. The light projected directly by it is only 30% of the total light it emits. In the US alone, roughly 1/3 of the light at night goes to waste, and that adds up to a staggering annual cost of $2.2 billion. Electric lights aren't all bad, of course. They have done some good stuff for us, like making our days longer so we can get more done and have some fun after work. But we can totally minimize this issue. Turning off all the lights would be awesome, but let's be real, that is very difficult, if not impossible these days. So, what can we do? Get those fancy controls like dimmers, timers, and motion sensors to make sure our lights are super efficient. Go for warmer colored lamps instead of those harsh blue ones. Oh, and consider using fully shielded light fixtures, like those cool vintage table lamps. They direct the light down where you need it, so you don't get that annoying glare or light scattering everywhere. Plus, when you cut down on wasted light, you're not just helping out the planet, you're also saving some cash on your electric bill. Talk about a win-win! For decades now, people have been dreaming of exploring space. And since the year 2000, there has indeed been a continuous presence of people in space. And recently, a new record has been set. Just a couple of weeks ago, there were 17 people from 5 different countries in Earth's orbit at the same time. The previous record was set in September 2021 during the privately funded Inspiration 4 mission. At that time, the number of people in orbit reached 14. So let's see. Just recently, 3 more people have arrived at China's Tiangong space station. There were 3 more astronauts aboard the same station, but they've been there since November 2022 and are supposed to return back to Earth in June. Then there are 7 people on board the International Space Station, and 4 more departed the ISS aboard SpaceX's Crew Dragon named Freedom. They successfully returned to Earth on the 30th of May 2023, leaving 13 people in orbit. Interestingly, the current record also includes the 600th person to get into Earth's orbit. Specialist Rayana Barnai from AX-2 mission became a space traveler number 600, as well as the first Saudi woman in space. But I've got something even more exciting to tell you. Oh my! The record for most people in space, and just not in Earth's orbit, was reset not so long ago too. But it lasted for a mere 5 minutes or so. But during this short period of time, there were 20 people off the planet. This record was set when 6 members of the Virgin Galactic Unity 25 Spaceship Two crew happened to be in space at the same time as 3 Chinese taikonauts living and working aboard Tiangong and 11 astronauts on board the International Space Station. Now, that's getting crowded. Well, the International Space Station has always hosted the majority of space travelers from Earth. But I bet there are some cool facts about this marvel of technological development you haven't heard yet. The ISS is the 3rd brightest object in the night sky, and the coolest thing? You can sign up for a special service and you'll get a text every time the ISS travels over your location and is visible with the unaided eye. I've seen it dozens of times myself and it's very, very cool. Normally, you can see it between dusk and dawn, but be ready because the station is very fast. It moves at a speed of 5 miles per second and circles our planet every 90 minutes. The International Space Station is a true record breaker. It's the largest human-made object in space. It's 357 feet long from end to end, which is about the same length as a soccer field. It also weighs about 450 tons. 8 spacecraft can dock at the ISS at the same time. The working and living space of the station is bigger than a 6-bedroom house. Astronauts have 6 sleeping quarters, a gym, 2 bathrooms, and a beautiful 360-degree view from their special bay window. Now to the nitty-gritty. On the ISS, you wouldn't have to deal with lots of disgusting smells. There is a specially trained person who smells everything astronauts take with them in space. It's done to protect them from unpleasant odors. The thing is that you can't really air the room out there if you don't like how it smells inside. That's why NASA is very careful about what kinds of smells are allowed to pass through. You'd also have to get rid of your clothes instead of washing them after each use. To bring a mere 1 pound of load to the International Space Station costs up to $10,000. That's why it's easier to throw your clothes away when they get dirty than to waste water washing them. Now, while sleeping, you'd have exceptionally good airflow around you. Otherwise, the carbon dioxide you'd exhale would form a bubble around your head and you get oxygen deprived, and that's not good. Now, people often think that in space you experience zero gravity, hence the weightlessness astronauts feel on the International Space Station. But that's not exactly true. Gravity is one of the most important forces that exist in the universe. Thanks to it, the Moon can orbit Earth and the Sun doesn't float away from our home Milky Way galaxy. But astronauts on the ISS experience not full-fledged but microgravity, which means itsy-bitsy gravity. Earth's gravity on the space station is not only around 10 to 12% weaker than the gravity on the planet's surface, but astronauts are constantly in free fall. The spacecraft, the people inside, and all the objects aboard keep falling forward, not down, but around our planet, following a specific orbit. And since they're all falling together, the crew and the stuff inside seem to be floating. But our space exploration plans are much more ambitious than just orbiting our planet on board the ISS. We're planning to send a mission to the Moon and build a colony on Mars. Some experts claim that in the next 25 years, around 20,000 people are likely to leave Earth. But how many people would it take to colonize an entire star system? In 2002, anthropologist John Moore from the University of Florida stated that a spaceship with 150 passengers could leave Earth and set off on a several thousand years journey to another star system. And upon arrival, the descendants of the original crew could build settlements in a new world. That seems like a lot of work to me. Let's continue. The nearest star system, Proxima Centauri, is 4.2 light-years away from our home planet. Talking about space, it's just next door. But for us, it's so far that we would need to build a generational spaceship to get us there. But the question is how many people you'd need to send on such a mission to have enough genetic diversity. A new study disagrees with John Moore, claiming it must be way more than 150 people. According to a scientist from Portland State University, a spaceship traveling to such a distant world would have to carry at least 10,000 people. This number might secure the success of the mission. 40,000 people would be even better. Who knows what could happen to the travelers during such a challenging and unprecedented journey? At the moment, NASA isn't ready to send humans even to Mars, let alone a distant solar system. But a few private organizations are working on this project. They hope to make interstellar trips possible in the next century. They count on a huge increase in propulsion speed, which could potentially reduce the travel time between stars to a mere few hundred years. Researchers have built several simulations to figure out how many various scenarios could play out during such an interstellar mission. And they have come to the conclusion that the success of this mission would greatly depend on the size of the starting population. Genetic diversity would keep the travelers healthy. The larger the population is, the more diversity it has. And 150 people is definitely not enough to maintain genetic variations. Even a population of 500 people wouldn't be sufficient enough. At the same time, if we sent to another solar system 40,000 people, we'd be able to maintain 100% of the variation. Even 10,000 travelers would make the scenario relatively stable, which means that any number between 10 and 40,000 people would be a pretty safe bet. But of course, we wouldn't be able to send so many people in space in just one spaceship. We'd have to build many and spread people among them. These ships could be modular, able to dock together for trade and some social gatherings. For the genetic variety, I'm guessing. But they would travel separately, so that if some disaster struck one of them, the rest would remain unharmed. But to make interstellar travel possible, researchers and engineers will have to overcome loads of obstacles. We still need to increase propulsion speed, deal with the negative health effects of living in space, and invent self-sustaining systems providing air, water, and food. Or we could just decide to fix our own planet and stay home.
Prepare for blast-off, because there's some exciting news from NASA coming our way. Care to look into the fascinating world of Saturn's moon Titan? NASA's groundbreaking Dragonfly rotorcraft lander is set to take off in 2027, looking to explore this mysterious space object. Now let me introduce you to Titan. It's an icy celestial body with an atmosphere filled with nitrogen, and it might even have an underground ocean. Titan is also home to rivers and lakes that flow on its surface. But guess what? They're not filled with water like our lovely planet. They have methane instead. Now let's check out Titan's celestial credentials. It's not just any moon. It's the second largest in our entire solar system. It's only 2% smaller than the biggest moon we have hanging around our neighborhood, which is Jupiter's Ganymede. Titan's size even puts Mercury to shame. And did I mention that its atmosphere is 4 times denser than that of Earth's? Thanks to Titan's lower gravity and thick atmosphere, Dragonfly is the perfect robotic companion to uncover its hidden treasures. Let's move on to Dragonfly, the star of NASA's upcoming mission to Titan. This cosmic drone is not your average explorer. Equipped with a full array of interesting gadgets, Dragonfly is like a flying laboratory, ready to uncover more secrets of Titan. It's the first interplanetary rotorcraft lander probe, designed to take us on an epic journey of discovery. And don't let its name fool you. Dragonfly won't just buzz around aimlessly. This technological marvel is able to glide for several miles between different locations on Titan's surface. Think of it as a cosmic Uber service for scientists. And speaking of technology, Dragonfly is carrying some seriously cool equipment. It'll feature the Drill for Acquisition of Complex Organics, DRACO, instrument, which will help us scoop out material from Titan, while the Dragonfly Mass Spectrometer, DRAMS, will analyze what these samples are made of. But how did we stumble upon Titan? It was March 25, 1655, when a Dutch astronomer was out there with his telescope, exploring the cosmos. Lo and behold, he spotted something amazing. It was Titan, the biggest moon of Saturn. Fast forward almost 300 years to 1944, when another cool astronomer jumped into the picture. He was doing some experiments with light when he figured out that Titan actually has its very own atmosphere. There's more to this story. In 1979, the Pioneer 11 spacecraft decided to take a joyride through the Saturn system. It confirmed all the cool things scientists had previously speculated about Titan, like its temperature and mass. However, there was one tiny mistake. Those sneaky scientists thought Titan might be the biggest moon in the entire solar system. Oops, wrong guess. Nevertheless, Titan had this mysterious, dense atmosphere that kept everyone on their toes. Now let's zoom in on the 1980s, when the Voyager 1 and 2 spacecraft make their grand entrance. These cosmic explorers flew past Saturn, and they wanted to get a good look at Titan's surface. That's when Titan decided to play a game of hide-and-seek with them. Its hazy atmosphere made it impossible to see what was going on down there. So all the Voyagers managed to capture were images of a lonely orange world. However, they did spot a fancy blue haze hanging out in the upper atmosphere. Things started to get really exciting in the 1990s. The Hubble Space Telescope joined the party and decided to take some cool snapshots of Titan using special infrared light. This clever device managed to pierce through the haze, and voila! The Hubble images revealed differently colored areas on Titan, almost like a giant cosmic chessboard. We now know that there's even a bright spot as wide as Australia down there. However, despite these fantastic pictures, the mystery of what lay beneath Titan's haze was still unsolved. It was 2004 when the stage was set for Cassini and its European sidekick, the Huygens probe. They were like the ultimate dynamic duo, ready to take on Saturn. Cassini started orbiting the ringed planet and immediately focused its attention on Titan. The big moment finally arrived. On January 14, 2005, the Huygens probe pierced through Titan's atmosphere. During its descent, Huygens collected all sorts of amazing data, snapping images and analyzing the atmosphere. The probe then transmitted this valuable information back to Cassini, which, like a cosmic courier, sent it to us eagerly waiting Earthlings. Over the next 13 years, Cassini flew close to Titan over 100 times, using all sorts of fancy instruments to get a good look at the moon's surface and atmosphere. Scientists could finally confirm that Titan had clouds, lakes, and rivers. And there was also some rain pouring down its surface. Thankfully for us, Titan isn't the only moon in our solar system that could technically harbor life. Take the wondrous moon of Neptune called Triton. For starters, it's the largest moon of Neptune, but it's also a real oddball. Among the many moons out there, only 5 are known to be geologically active. And guess what? Triton is proudly part of this exclusive club. It loves to show off its geysers, which spew nitrogen gas. Picture Triton as a fashionista in an icy ensemble. Its surface is mainly frozen nitrogen, giving it a chill, frosty vibe. You might want to bring a warm coat if you ever visit. Now, you may be wondering how Triton manages to keep warm in such a frigid environment. Well, it's got a secret weapon called tidal forces. Imagine Triton and Neptune engaged in a cosmic dance, creating gravitational friction. This dance seems to generate some heat, helping to warm up Triton's waters. With all this talk about heat, you might be getting excited about the possibility of life on Triton. However, finding life on this moon is about as likely as finding a unicorn riding a skateboard. Voyager 2, the only mission to ever fly by Triton, made its journey back in 1989. And if you're hoping for another mission to Triton anytime soon, well, let's just say the stars aren't aligning in our favor, literally. The window for a mission to Triton opens up only once every 13 years, because our planet and Jupiter need to be perfectly aligned for the landing to work. Scientists would use the gravitational pull of the largest planet in our solar system to safely deliver a probe on Triton. Now, let's address the elephant in the room, or should I say, the polar bear. It's so cold on Triton that hopes for life to survive unfrozen are about as slim as a toothpick. Sorry, potential little microbes. You might need a few extra sweaters to set up shop down there. Even though Triton may not be the most welcoming place for life, it's still a celestial gem worth exploring. Scientists also believe Triton wasn't always a part of Neptune's crew. As it turns out, Triton was most likely just minding its business, hanging around aimlessly in the distant Kuiper Belt. Along came Neptune with its mighty gravitational pull and snatched Triton right out, officially making it a moon of its own. Just like our trusty satellite, Triton is also stuck in a permanent face-off with Neptune. One side of Triton always has its eyes locked on the planet. As for this amazing moon's fate, things aren't looking so good in the long run. It's already getting closer and closer to Neptune every day. Why is that, you might wonder? The problem is with those tidal interactions, which are playing some cosmic tricks on Triton. They're causing its orbit to wither away, like a slow-motion dance towards Neptune. Scientists predict that in about 3.6 billion years, Triton will cross an invisible boundary. If these current calculations are correct, there are 2 possible scenarios. It'll either have a collision with Neptune's atmosphere, or it might just break up into tiny pieces. If the latter happens, an all-new ring system would form around Neptune, just like the one we see around Saturn nowadays. Triton is not the only satellite that might end up this way. Phobos, one of the Martian moons, is likely to disintegrate too, and sooner, in 30 to 50 million years. What the? Look! Do you see this? Part of the sun has broken off, and it's now churning above the star's surface, having formed a giant vortex. What's going on there? Well, let's admit it. We still know very little about the sun, however crucial this star is for our well-being. But in the case of the broken sun, scientists can probably explain what happened. Some of the star's plasma likely erupted from the sun's surface and broke away, creating something resembling a crown-like vortex over the solar North Pole. And still, this is just a theory. Astronomers need to conduct further analysis to figure out if this is what really happened. At the moment, they're a bit baffled, since this phenomenon is nothing like anything they've seen before. But the footage we've got is undeniably impressive. What is more alarming, though, is that the behavior of our star is currently changing. The sun is ramping up its activity. It's getting rowdier with flares and sunspots. This year, it's flared every day so far. It's also thrown up a few X-class and M-class flares in January of 2023. These flares are the largest and second largest eruptions our star can produce. Even though it sounds kind of alarming, don't worry. The sun has certain activity cycles that repeat every 11 years or so. Some of them are relatively calm, while others are absolutely wild. These cycles happen simultaneously with the fluctuations in the sun's magnetic field. When it gets the weakest at the star's poles, they switch places. This makes the polarity of the magnetic field reverse. This is the very period of time when the sun is the most active. It's known as solar maximum. Right now, we're near this solar maximum. Scientists can figure it out by analyzing unusual solar activity. But since the sun is still pretty much a mystery to us, no one can determine when the polarity reversal is likely to occur. A rough estimation is July of 2025. At the same time, we can't say that the current solar situation is normal. It's true that each sun's cycle is different from others. Some are weaker and some are more powerful. So this one, which started in December of 2019, has already significantly exceeded all scientists' expectations and keeps doing so. Which brings us back to the vortex observed on February 2nd, 2023 that impressed astronomers so much. It started as a solar prominence. This is a bright plasma filament extending away from the surface of the sun. And, let me tell you, solar prominences are an absolutely regular phenomenon. And like the most recent one, they often occur at high altitudes around the sun's crown, which is the outermost layer of the star's atmosphere, also known as the corona. Anyway, prominences like the one in question are called hedgerow prominences because they look like a hedge. But what surprised astronomers happened a bit later. The material of the filament apparently broke away and started circling the pole near where it occurred at 60 degrees latitude and at a speed of about 60 miles per second. And it lasted for about 8 hours. One scientist, who has been observing the sun's cycles for decades, claims that he has never seen vortices like that. Unfortunately, solar poles are very difficult to observe, so it might be a while till we get our answers. For the first time, a spacecraft touched the surface of the sun in 2021. It was NASA's Parker Solar Probe that flew through our star's upper atmosphere. It also took some samples of particles and examined magnetic fields there. It was a real milestone and a giant leap for solar science. Getting their hands on the very stuff the sun is made of will allow researchers to uncover crucial information about our star and its influence on us and the entire solar system. The Parker Solar Probe moved closer to the sun's surface and started making discoveries that other spacecraft were too far away to see. For example, the probe examined the solar wind from within. It's a flow of particles coming from the sun. These particles can influence us here on Earth. Even before coming super close to the star, the Parker probe found out that near the sun, there were loads of magnetic zigzag structures in the solar wind called switchbacks. But at that time, scientists couldn't figure out how they formed and where they appeared. But now, more than 2 years later, we know for sure that switchbacks originate at the solar surface. As you know, the sun doesn't have any solid surface, unlike our planet, but it has a superheated atmosphere, which is made of solar material bound by magnetic forces and gravity. When pressure and rising heat push that material away from the star, it eventually reaches a point where the sun's magnetic field and its gravity can't contain it anymore. This point has its own name, the Alphane critical surface. It marks the edge of the solar atmosphere, and that's also where the solar wind begins. The material that manages to make it past the boundary turns into the solar wind. it drags the sun's magnetic field toward Earth and beyond. But the most important thing is that past the boundary, this wind starts moving so fast that its waves can't return back to the sun, which literally means severing all connections with the star. During its flyby, the Parker probe passed inside and out of the sun's corona several times, which proved that the Alphane critical surface wasn't shaped like a smooth sphere. It has valleys and spikes, and its surface is kinda wrinkled. At one point, the probe even came across a pseudo-streamer. These are massive structures in the sun's corona that rise high above the surface of the star. You can see them from Earth during solar eclipses. And you know what? For the Parker probe, passing through the pseudo-streamer was like flying into the eye of a storm. Inside, everything was much quieter. Particles moved more slowly, and there were fewer switchbacks. It was a huge change from the barrage of particles the probe encountered inside the solar wind. Now, speaking of solar flares, those are pretty dangerous for Earth. The radiation they release can interfere with our radio communication. Such storms affect all electronic systems, from the internet to power grids, and can even destroy satellites. Most solar flares last for minutes, but some continue for hours. Scientists classify solar flares depending on how brightly they shine in X-rays. You aren't likely to notice the tiniest flares if you don't have special equipment. Medium solar flares lead to fleeting radio blackouts at the poles, but nothing too serious. It's X-class flares that people should be worried about. They cause the strongest and longest-lasting solar storms. A super strong solar storm heading toward Earth won't happen at once. First, there will be high-energy sunlight, mostly ultraviolet rays and X-rays. They will ionize our planet's upper atmosphere and mess up radio communication. After that, a radiation storm will hit Earth. And finally, a colossal cloud of charged solar particles will reach our atmosphere. The particles will interact with the planet's magnetic field and wreak havoc all over the world. If an intense solar storm happened these days, it would start by disrupting GPS and knocking out satellites. If any astronauts were spacewalking at that moment, they would have mere minutes after the first flash of light to find shelter. Their spacecraft would likely be properly shielded and safe enough. The main challenge would be to get inside in time. After that, the storm will proceed to interfere with satellite communications. That's why tons of your daily activities, from calling your friends to paying with your credit card, would be at risk. But one of the worst consequences would be connected with power grids. Power surges caused by the particles coming from the sun would damage giant transformers. A powerful solar storm could cost people $1 trillion to $2 trillion. Luckily, if such a powerful solar storm was heading our way, we'd most likely get some kind of warning. Modern equipment all over the world and in space doesn't stop watching the sun even for a second. It would give us some time to prepare, between several hours and a couple of days. And if transformers were taken offline in time, the consequences wouldn't be so dramatic.